Hi, I'm Tom Zimmerman. This podcast episode is about the four blinks approach. It assumes that you've read the script. Hopefully you may have tried the script. And it anticipates some potential problems you may have because working with clients with trauma is complicated. Working with clients with complex trauma is particularly complicated, regardless of the approach that you use. Flash itself is incredibly simple. But again, trauma is one of those things that can complicate even really simple things. And one of the places that complications may show up is from the simple hardware of Flash itself. So if if one of the ways that we might anticipate problems is by looking at what Flash is and what Flash-like approaches, particularly the four blinks approach is. Many of the things that I'm going to say probably will work very well with Ricky Greenwald's script. His version and my version are much more similar than the model that Phil Manfield has. So the way that we can conceptualize what this type of Flash-like approach is very light activation. What we've learned and what Flash-like approaches can teach memory reconsolidation approaches is that very light activation in many cases is enough. Okay, so this is really important because the moment we activate too much, the moment we activate more than we need to bring this memory into working memory, we may start to marshal defenses. And the moment we marshal defenses, then we're going to have to deal with those defenses. We're going to have to deal with the amygdala that's been tripped. And we don't want to do that. We just want to very quickly peek in on this memory. What is really different, and this is super important, and if you don't understand this about Flash-like approaches, you're going to really struggle with Flash comprehensively. In approaches like EMDR, in approaches like somatic experiencing, what we notice is the activation. So activation and noticing are part of the same thing, right? What we're noticing is what we activate, okay? Flash is profoundly different. Flash-like approaches are completely different in that we activate the memory just enough to bring it into working memory, and then we very quickly push it out of awareness. And what we notice is not that activation at all, something completely different. What we're noticing is our response to this calm scene, or we're attuning to this calm scene, and we're encouraging ourselves to have an experience that that is going to challenge what is in that bad memory. Also, in the four blinks approach particularly, we're really not containing the whole memory all at once. What we're containing is the current slice of this memory. Whatever it is, when we very quickly peek at it, again, what you'll hear me say over and over in the demos is really quickly open the door, close it. And you can practice this with clients, opening the door and closing it. Imagine them standing in the hallway of any room that they have. They can imagine opening a door, they can imagine closing it. And if they can do that, they're likely to be able to do this. So we are working with very small pieces at a time. So one way you may think about it is if you kind of, lick your finger and tap a skillet, a hot skillet, that's it. That's all we're doing. That is what's getting containered. Or if you open the door and close it, or if you imagine a camera, an old school camera with a shutter, right? Whatever you see in that frame, when you open the door that is distressing, that's what gets containered. So we're not containing after the very first time in step 3 where we identify the memory and contain it. That's really the only time we're containing the whole memory. What we're containing over and over are the little bitty slices of distress that come. And the moment the tiniest little bit of distress comes, that's what gets containered, and then we're pivoting to our calm scene. So we're not landing the whole fish all in one tug. We are cutting this into micro slices, which is going to let us activate in ways that aren't going to activate or overly activate our defenses. One of the things that we really need to do to understand where things may go wrong is understand a little bit about what memory reconsolidation is. And the way I think about 4 blinks and the way I think about flash, and in fact, the way I think about every trauma therapy that is transformational, I think about it now from a memory reconsolidation perspective. And memory reconsolidation perspectives boil down to, we activate lightly or activate a memory, and then we encourage the client to have an experience that challenges the expectation, the schema that is in that bad memory. So what Flash can teach us is that many types of experiences that are calm or relaxing or centering or compelling may be contradictory enough to start to move that memory into a positive and adaptive direction. So what is remarkable about Flash approaches is that it does memory reconsolidation, right? Lightly activate container, calm scene blinks, lightly activation container, calm scene blinks. And if we didn't do the blinks and we just did the lightly activation, calm scene, 30 seconds of the calm scene with no blinks, it would still work. It would just work much more slowly. Because one of the things Flash-like approaches tend to be teaching us is that if you want to process a memory quickly, it's not necessarily the duration that you're in the calm scene. It may be the going in and out of the calm scene. It may be the exposure to, coming out, going back in, new exposure. So each time the client blinks, they're blinking out of the calm scene, and then they're going back in it. And then they're blinking out of the calm scene, and then they're going back in it. They're blinking out, they're going back in, they're blinking out, they're going back in. So every time we do this in a 30-second period, the client may be going in and out of that calm scene 6 times. So that's important. So it's also important, if the client is struggling, it's important that in a few seconds, they need to find their way back into something that is calming. And we're going to talk about when clients are, they're not even having time to load up their calm scene and you're telling them to blink. We need to talk about some accommodations you can make so that they're able to go in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out of that calm scene, and to load up in each of those micro exposures some of the calm, relaxing, disconfirming information of the negative belief that's in that bad memory. So here are some things that can go wrong. Number one, because we're not talking very much about the target, sometimes it's possible that clients might target something other than a memory. And if you want Flash-like approaches to really not go well, target something other than an individual discrete memory. Target the whole of my 7th grade year. That's going to go nowhere. That's a theme. That is a theme of, it's a theme of, extended wounding. That is not a memory. So what we do want to do is we want to make sure, and you can ask before you go in, is this a specific individual memory? It's not, why does my mom not know how to love me right? It's not, why am I stupid? It's not, why do all my relationships not work out? It's none of those things. It's a discrete individual memory. Another thing that may happen is our goal is to peek at this memory, close it, and open and close it. It is possible, and you need to be prepared, your own self as the therapist. You need to be prepared kind of from a skill point of view. You need to be prepared from a, centeredness point of view. You need to be prepared maybe even from a spiritual point of view to manage the possibility that a client may peek at this and the whole memory may burst out. They may have an intrusive experience. When we ask them to just very quickly check the memory and close it, they may fall into the memory, or the memory may grab them and pull them into the memory. So I have a separate podcast episode about dealing with flashbacks when they occur in EMDR or when they occur in Flash. Please reference that. It's at 4blinks.com, managing flashbacks. It's really, really helpful. You're going to want to do that in order to make sure that flashbacks don't become a catastrophe. Flashbacks happen. They don't happen often, but when they happen, if you know how to manage them, they are not a catastrophe. And almost every time except one, that a flashback has happened, we've been able to, just a few moments later, after grounding the client, getting them back into the room, go back into that calm scene, and resume reprocessing, even after a flashback has occurred and kind of taken the client out of the current space-time. So, and again, very, very quickly, the way we do that is sensory grounding. We have the client look at things, name things, touch things, smell things, hear things, do every kind of anchor we can to make sure the client is really, really present. Again, I have a whole podcast related to this. And then when you do, I want you to do at least 2 rounds in the calm scene, like 2 sets in that calm scene before you check in on the memory again. And when you check in on the memory again, what you can do is say, okay, we're going to open the door again. But when you hear me say open, I want you to open the door. And when you hear me say close, I want you to close the door and blank it out. No matter what you're seeing, no matter what you're feeling, blank it out and start grounding yourself by looking at objects in this room. So what that looks like when we get there is, I'll say very quickly, open, close. Okay, that quick, maybe half a second where they're looking in, and whatever it is that's distressing in this moment, we're putting it into the container and pushing that container out of awareness. One of the things you can do, if you suspect, or if a client has a history of too much content coming in too quickly, this is one of those things where an ounce of prevention may be a ton of cure. Let clients know that what we're looking for is not for you to have, not for you to load more than a few milliseconds of that memory. All we're doing, again, the door, open, close metaphor, the camera, shutter, click, click metaphor. These are milliseconds that we're activating, and we need to be able to close that door, and we need to be able to push whatever that activation is out of awareness, so that imagine a sheet. We're going to cover the whole bed. We don't want even a corner of that sheet to be folded over. We want it to be just perfect, perfect blanket out of awareness, so that all of that canvas can be what we see and what we're experiencing the calm scene with. Another thing that may happen is that even in these very quick little blinks and very quick little exposures, it is entirely possible that adjacent memories may want to come to the party. And that makes sense, particularly clients with complex trauma. The moment we feel even a tiny bit a certain way that feels familiar, our minds, our nervous system almost automatically will start to do an affect scan and start, pulling up other memories. It'll start searching on other memories when our bodies felt this way. Again, an ounce of prevention is a ton of cure when it comes to this. Let clients know we are bookending. We are putting a bookend right around this memory. Our goal is to clear this memory. If other memories want to come, we can make time for them, but not right now, not in this moment. Our goal in this work is to clear one memory, and to clear it quickly, efficiently, and with as little distress as possible. So again, be careful. Be careful about too much memory opening up. This is not free association in any way. And every bit of our focus is on the calm scene. Every bit. Again, from a memory reconsolidation perspective, we are promoting an experience. Again, the client needs to have an experience that is different than the expectation in that bad memory. So what happens? Most problems with flash-like approaches, and a lot of times when clients really struggle, these two need to not be in the same space. So if this is happening, we have a problem, and flash-like approaches are not working. If the memory is intruding on the experience, then the memory is polluting that experience. It is not working. The computer program is crashing. It has a glitch in it. It's not running. It's not compiling. It's not working. So if there's not a clear separation, right? If there's not a clear separation between the bad memory and the calm scene that we're working on, we may need to strengthen the container and push it even further away. Sometimes we need to push the container even farther away than it feels like or that our intuition tells us that we need to do. Sometimes when clients have a problem with the memory intersecting with the calm scene, the problem may be the problem that I referenced earlier. The problem may be that we have overly activated that memory. And the more you overly activate a memory, the more residue there may be in the body. And guess what? If you have a lot of activation in your body, that is an intersection, right? So if you're having body-based activation, we need to scoop it out. A lot of flash therapists don't do that. They just ignore the body as a place of where we need to kind of evacuate distress so that our calm scene can be really, really calming. So again, if the client's activated too much, again, we want to activate just this little slice, just this little slice, just this little slice. If the activation is too much, again, let the client know we're just activating a slice. Ask the client. I ask the client a lot. Is this showing up anywhere in your body? Scoop it out, vacuum it out. We're going to clear the canvas between the light activation and the noticing the calm scene. One of the things that can cause a lot of activation unintentionally is if you check the SUDS too soon. I don't check the SUDS until the client is starting to have problems finding the activation when we're opening the door and closing it. If you check the SUDS too soon, think about what checking the SUDS is. When you ask the client, how much distress is in that memory right now? What you're really asking them to do is to play the memory and evaluate how much distress is in that memory as a whole. We don't want to do that. That is an invitation for overactivation. Wait until, whatever the slice is. By the way, whatever the slice is, do you know what we're not doing? We're not talking about it. Whatever the slice is, very quickly put that into the client's not telling you what that is. Why? Because telling you is going to cause more activation and it's going to eat up time. And you don't need to know. All you need to know, yes, whatever it is that's distressing, see it go into your container, push your container out of your awareness, load up your calm scene. Let me know when you're there. Blink. We do this for 30 seconds every 5 seconds. Okay. Again, if the memory intrudes into the calm scene, strengthen the container, push it further away than you need. And if it keeps happening, you may need to change the container to something that's a little bit more compelling. So that's always a possibility. The calm scene needs to be compelling. If the calm scene isn't compelling enough, it may not provide enough disconfirming experience. And again, that's what we're after. We're after an experience. We're not after, you know, a disembodied, you know, connection with something. We're trying to promote a calm experience, a calm process. One of the really common things, and this will show up in step 1 and step 2, one of the really common problems is when clients really struggle to visualize the container. So much of putting stuff in is a visual ritual, and the ability to see it, to see the to scoop up a sensation, to see it go into a container, to build a container, to be able to see how it closes. A lot of this stuff requires things that many clients may struggle with. So when clients struggle to visualize, I have a whole podcast on that. Please check that out, because you're going, you know, this flash is in a lot of ways a visual exercise. And if you really, really struggle with visualizing, you may struggle with containment. If you struggle with containment, you may struggle keeping the difficult stuff and the disconfirming calm information separate. There are many, many, many ways, including outsourcing the visualization. And this is incredibly important. Imagine 2 calm scenes, okay? And one of these calm scenes we're going to be in at 30 seconds, but we're really not. We're only going to be in at 5 seconds at a time. Okay. Why? Because every time we blink, we're going out of the calm scene. We're engaging in a motor movement that's kind of blinking out that calm scene, and we're going right back in. Imagine someone who runs on their favorite stretch of trail, and they have experience after experience after experience with this. In a lot of ways, this is a body-based memory. This is a somatic memory. They're tapping into that. And it may be really easy for them to fall back into that. In a few, maybe in 1 second, they can go from blinks to right back into running on their favorite trail, okay? Other clients may pick a beach, and imagine how difficult it would be to conjure the sand, to conjure the ocean, to conjure the waves, to conjure seagulls, to conjure pine trees and palm trees, and to do all of that really in just a tiny, tiny, you know, tiny bit of time. So what we don't want is a client to be like, you know, I've kind of got the beach, oh, blink, and then they go back and, oh, you know, almost they're not able to get into the experience of the calm scene because it takes so much mental overhead to get to the calm scene. So one of the things that I can't really prove, but I'm going to say it as though it's a fact, is that when you outsource the calm scene to an actual experience, meaning the client actually petting their own dog on their lap, or the calm scene is a video that the client is watching on YouTube, my clients process about 40% faster. And I attribute that to the lack of overhead. It's so much easier to get right back into something that is being provided for you rather than you having to make it. So again, if you're petting your dog, think about how in just 50 milliseconds, you can turn right back in. In just 50 milliseconds, you can turn right back in and be tuned into petting that dog. That's something you can go in and out. Or if the video is on YouTube of the waves coming in on the beach, that part's provided for you. You can very rapidly and quickly attune to that. Check out the video on clients who struggle to visualize, because my take is the more complex the trauma, the more likely you're going to want to outsource the visualization anyway. So what do we do when the memory loses a lot of its distress, but the distress doesn't go to zero? I think in early versions of Flash, we were like, well, okay, it went as low as it goes. So I guess we're going to pivot to EMDR. We're going to do something else. We've since learned that there are reasons why the suds doesn't go lower. We just need to find the slice, right? So the client may be looking at this big chunk of memory, say, I know it's not a 0, but I don't know what it is. Well, we need to find the slice, and we want to check all the channels. Sometimes the channel is a piece of the memory, the raw sensory information. Sometimes it's something we're seeing. Sometimes it's something we're hearing or smelling or feeling. Sometimes it's a thought. And a shocking amount of time when the suds goes to a 1 or a 2 and it doesn't go any lower. Sometimes the reason and it takes a little bit of exploration, right? On what channel is this distress hanging out? And the client may tell you, what's really distressing about it is just that it happened. Okay, guess what? Get that thought that it happened, which is true, right? The things we container, we don't just container lies, we container many, many things that are true. Get that thought, see it go into your container, push it out of your awareness. And the reason we push it out of our awareness isn't because it's not true. We push it out of our awareness because we need to make room for the calm scene. And we need to go in and out of that calm scene. So sometimes, and again, I can't repeat this enough, sometimes what makes that a 1 or a 2 or a 3 or 4, it's a body sensation. Scoop that up. Imagine a shop vac. Shh. See it, right? The ritual of seeing it. You know, that gunk, is it gray? Is it black? Is it purple? See it leaving you and going into that shop vac hose, see that shop vac getting smaller and smaller and smaller. When there is a suds that's not a 0, it's not a 0 for some reason. We don't go, oh, right. So we need to explore the different channels, you know, thought, memory, body sensation, and see if for some, you know, see what it is. What is it? What is the slice right now that's bringing current distress? Container it, push it out of awareness, load up your calm scene. Let me know when you're there. Good. These are some problems that the therapist might introduce inadvertently. Okay, so remember how I said we're containering one slice of the memory at a time. So imagine we're several steps in, and whatever it is right now that's distressing, we put it in the container, we see the container close, we push the container out of awareness. Okay, that's all good. When we check the memory, we're checking the memory. We're not going and opening the container. Why would we go and open the container when we only put a little slice of it in? So think of the container as this endless arrival of empty containers into which we're going to shuck, just like a barrel of corn. We're going to shuck one piece at a time into a completely empty container that's going to go out of awareness. Empty container, go out of awareness. We never open up the container to see what's in it. Whatever gets containered stays in the container, and there's just hundreds, sometimes hundreds of them that just exist out in the world. So when we're looking for the distress, don't look in the container, look in the memory. What's the distress in the memory right here, right now? Because remember, in the 4 blinks approach, other than the very first time when we identify the memory and we container the idea of it, after that, we're not containing the memory. We're containing whatever it is that is distressing in this instance. And then that goes into your container and goes out of awareness. You may be inadvertently activating your clients when you ask them to tell, don't ask them, what are you noticing, right? So be careful not to explore, be careful not to have them tell you what they're containing, what they're noticing, what they're seeing, what they're feeling. It is not important. What is important is this process. Imagine this seesaw. We want to keep the seesaw going, right? And the seesaw is a very lightly activate container. Calm scene blinks. Very lightly activate container, calm scene blinks. We want to keep this seesaw going. Okay. Because if you're not careful in the exploration that you do, you may encourage the client to overly activate. So look at the demos that are on 4 blinks. What you'll notice is that we're not dawdling. I mean, and those are actually much slower than many times when I'm working with complex trauma. We are click, 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 right? Okay, good. How did that go? Meaning if they're in the calm scene. And when I ask, how did that go? The only thing I mean by that is, were you able to stay in the calm scene? Were you able to keep going back into the calm scene? And if a client says, I'm really having trouble, I find myself distracted, a little bit of distraction is okay, but were you able to keep sending yourself back into that calm scene? And did you have an experience that was disconfirming, that was relaxing, compelling, interesting, distracting? So it is okay for you not to be, you know, a mindful guru, right? Of many clients with complex trauma, they're going to get distracted. They're going to get disoriented. What we don't want is, we don't want the bad memory and the calm scene intersecting in any way. We don't want a bunch about body activation and the calm scene intersecting in any way. And I promise, if you work in a very fractionated approach, if you work only in the absolute present, right here, right now, what is it in this moment, in this frame? You open the door and close it. What is it in this instant, in this instance, that's distressing? Quickly put that into your container. See it close, push it out of your awareness. Good. Let me know when it's gone. Load up your calm scene. Let me know when you're there. Blink. Okay, good. This is about all I really have to say on problems that, you know, problems that may go wrong. And to rewind, many of these problems relate to what 4 blinks, what flash-like approaches are. Very light activation. What we are noticing is not what we're activating. Okay, and we're working with very small slices at a time. So every single problem that I've identified falls into kind of one of those 3 categories. So thank you. It is my goal, it is my hope that you find ways to do this with your clients. You find ways to do this as a kind of self-care strategy. My real goal is that you find ways to not just plug resources into Flash, but you find ways to using this very powerful pathway of healing, which has been with us for an incredibly long time. My hope is that you're going to find a way to turn your resources into psychotherapies of healing. And how might you do that? Whatever it is that's relaxing, centering, calming for you, let that be the focus, right? So I'm doing petting my dog therapy. I'm doing my warm bath therapy, right? I'm doing my yoga therapy, where I'm lightly activating, pushing it out of awareness, noticing my experience right here, right now, in this particular position. Okay, and then disrupting that and going back in. Make sense? Good. Let me know how I can be helpful. This is incredibly simple. It is complicated by complex trauma, as is everything. I want you, and I'm as committed as I can be to help you do this. And show your clients how to do this, because Lord knows we are incredibly fortunate to have ways of healing that are rapid, that are effective, and that are deeply transformative. it is in a lot of ways the answer to what now? I mean, with all of the things we've gone through culturally, we've got the diagnosis down. We can start to begin to confront the reality that we are a pretty pervasively traumatized culture. And this can be an answer to now what? We are a pretty pervasively traumatized world. We need rapid, safe, and highly effective ways of healing. So I want to help you figure out how to find your way there and how you can navigate your clients there. So thanks a lot. Be in touch. Again, everything I've had to say about any of this is on Forblinks, FOURBLINKS.com. Thanks a lot.